So, welcome everybody. I am here with Will. And where I got to know Will to start is he appeared suddenly on Nick Freerillian's. Was it Chesterton? No, it was before he. So, Nick on his channel has been doing Chesterton and Chill every other Wednesday night or so. And then you appeared in this conversation about Bethel, which is a world that was completely foreign to me. But I've gotten some pieces of the evangelical puzzle, or just Christianity at large in the United States, thanks to uh, Paul Vanderklay, who's like basically the figure that originally brought all of the people in this little corner of the internet together. We all found each other through well, not entirely, but for the most part, we found each other through Paul Vanderklay. And I've seen you pop up on more than one occasion now in talking through, and every time that you chimed into the conversation, like the Philemon conversation, I was like, that's a really good insight. That's stuff that, and me being Roman Catholic, one thing I notice is that the the focus on the Bible is still stronger within Protestantism than Roman Catholicism. That's changing, by the way. The Roman Catholics are catching up, and they're catching up fast. However, your focus, the Protestant focus on the epistles, you guys know the epistles really well, like all the letters of St. Paul, and so I've learned a lot from that, and I appreciate it. And then Nick lovingly reached out and said, "Hey, Neal, would you be willing to rando Will?" And so the rando store, it's short for like a random person, and we have terminology like coming out of the lurk. And technically you're out of the lurk already, because the lurk is someone lurking is like just watching, but they're not participating. They're not known by the rest of the community. And so you're already out of the lurk, whether you like it or not, because you've been on a couple of Nick streams. But now the goal of this conversation is to do the official rando, where you can tell your story. So anyway, that's a long intro. Thank you, Will. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So typically we start out the rando with, tell me about the home you grew up in.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, because you're Roman Catholic, I can actually start with that. My mom, when I was a little kid, we went to Catholic church. We went to a church called St. Isidore's in Yuba City, California. I barely remember it. I remember the inside because I was like under 5 years old. So she was raised Catholic. My grandpa, her father, was Catholic and raised all his kids. And anything I say is not meant to be derogatory, right? It's just I'm just passing on stories. I got no hate for it at all.
You call it as you see it.
But yeah, his journey was they went, and the way my mom describes it, and like they went to church every time, and like if you didn't, like you could lose your salvation type deal. And I don't know all the different classifications of sin and Catholicism or anything, but so that's how they grew up. And in fact, my grandpa, when I knew him as a guy who was always watching these old guys on TV that would like read the Bible and pray, and like he sat in his lounger and he'd read his Bible, like just kind of like this boring old guy who's always watching boring old guys read the Bible. But I guess prior to that, he never went to a Bible study or read the Bible, because he was taught, in at least history of Catholicism, that only your priest can tell you about the Bible. So he went to a Bible study at some point, I'm guessing when I was young. And it was like a scary thing to do. Like, I'm like being real bad right now, rebellious. And so they slowly, I think that led them to leaving the Catholic Church. And I remember my mom's reason, which is her reason, not my reason, but whatever. I was a little kid. I just got dragged along. She left because she felt like they never talked about Jesus. And so she went to an Assemblies of God church, and she thought it was like alive there. And they were doing like tongues and stuff, and whatever you think about that. Almost like the old school Pentecostal type of tongues. So, you know, one person shouts on one side of the room, then another person on the other side of the room stands up and says, this is what it means, basically. And so that to her was amazing. And so we got raised in that church in Yuba City. My parents divorced when I was like 2. So I have like one memory of them together. So my whole life is raised with my mom. She remarried for a while. They got divorced. And then I have 2 sisters. And so we went to church a lot. Like we went Sunday night. we went Saturday night for prayer meeting. We went Wednesday night. There was like puppet practice on a Monday night. There's drama practice on a Tuesday, all night prayer meetings on a Friday. I did it all. And I loved it. And we did a thing called Sidewalk Sunday School on Saturdays. So we go out to all these parks and invite kids who aren't going to come to church to come to the park. And you basically do church at the park, give them candy. They can win prizes. You teach them Bible lessons. So I did that for a long time. And I guess if I reel it back, I grew up and I went to a Christian school also called Faith Christian, up to 7th grade, kindergarten through 7th grade. And then it was probably sometime when I was like 4 or 5. I don't remember exactly. But I remember my mom sent me down on her water bed, right? At least this is how I remember it. And like, it could be like your memories get mixed up as you get older. But she basically explained to me like, hey, I'm going to heaven one day. I'm communicating what was explained to me, not the theology I exactly believe today. Okay.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm going to heaven. I can't take you with me. But there's also this other place called hell, and that's really scary. And she, like you would classically think of hell. And so she said, hey, if you want to go to heaven where I'm going to be, you have to accept Jesus. And like, I already believed God. Like, this is just an underlying worldview for me. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds crazy to say about 4-year-old or 5-year-old, but it's true. I really did. And I, as far back as I can remember, and I said, dude, what do I have to do basically? And it's kind of crazy for me to think about her explaining to a 4 or 5-year-old like this, but it worked. For me, I really believed it, and I understood what she said. And I know it's not like the age of accountability or anything, but like for me, that's my moment where I was all in, and I really wanted to. I can't say as a 4 or 5-year-old to say it, but I wanted to be right before God and live pleasing to Him, basically from that day on. Obviously, I haven't always, but I've always wanted to, right? And that's never gone away. And I would even say with that, like, I've always thought about God. Like, probably not a day goes by where I haven't thought about God, thought about death, thought about, like, it's just always on my mind for whatever reason. It's just, can't really escape it. And so that was always there. So I did want to be, and I mean, in the beginning, it was a fear of hell that was motivating me. You know what I mean? But that's changed. I mean, there's still probably some fear of that. Like, hey, man, judgment's for reals, and I don't want to be on the bad side of Jesus one day. But I got a fuller picture now going on in my head. So that's how it started. Family life, if I think about it, my dad's not really in the picture. So Nick, man, I've had lots of funny conversations with Nick. I don't think I realized how jacked up some of my experiences were as a kid until he reacted like, man, that is jacked up. And I was like, is it that jacked up? I guess it is kind of jacked up. So as a divorced kid, what's pretty common is one parent would get like, basically where my mom had custody, except for every other weekend, we would have to go to my dad's house, right? And then in the summer, when school's not in, it's 2 weeks on at your mom's house, 2 weeks at your dad's house. And my dad is legally blind. He's dead now, but he was legally blind. So and there's probably a whole bunch of issues. Like, man, I'm trying to think, how deep do I go? But so like going to his house and those weeks, it would suck, right? You'd be like, and it sucked because he was abusive or anything. He was a drunk, but he was like, I would call a happy drunk, right? So he would get drunk and do stupid things. And I was too young to realize this is embarrassing and that he's drunk. I just thought he was acting really silly, right? I just thought like, wow, he's in a crazy mood. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I was just a little kid. But my sister, who's 4 years older than me, she would be very upset and embarrassed. And I didn't really get it. I was like, whatever. He just bought me a $700 football signed by Jim Brown, like sweet, like, I don't care, but I didn't like going to his house because like a lot of times there wouldn't be food, and like he'd be off at work at like Caltrans, and here you're 8 years old and you're like, well, what the freak am I going to eat today? And so you'd be like eating spoonfuls of peanut butter because you're hungry. You know what I mean? And then years later, my sister tells me, I'm seriously, as an adult, she's like, yeah, well, mom would send me with food. And I was like, what? why weren't you sharing with me? What the heck? I was like, you're my older sister. You're supposed to be looking out for me. And we had a good laugh about that.
How
But
much older was she than you? Like 3 years?
4 years. Yeah, she's about
4
4
years.
years
Okay.
older. And I thought it was funny, but at the same time, like, what the heck? We could have been full, not hungry. And then my dad married for a season, a lady who was, what do they call it? Manic depressive or bipolar. So that also made it not as fun to go to their house. I remember one time we were eating dinner, and like at least on my dad's side and his grandparents, which were actually kind of solid, not believers, but they took care of their family. Much had table manners, right? And no elbows on the table, asked to pass things, use the right fork, all that deal, you know. And one time I had a stepbrother, he put his elbow on the table, and my bipolar stepmom had a knife in her hand and she just chucked it at him. So whatever was in her hand, she would just chuck if you like broke a table manner. And at the time as a kid, you accept that this is normal. And then later on, you reflect back as you're adult, you're like, what the heck? That was jacked up, you know? That's not a normal reaction from an adult to a child. So that's kind of what it's like at his house, but we weren't there all the time. Most of the time at my mom's house. And
what were your friends like growing up?
My friends. So I went to a Christian school, and unbeknownst to me, that does not mean everybody's Christian. I figured that out in 6th grade. And so most of my friends were from that school, and I assumed we were all Christians. This is in my spiritual journey, this was a big moment. That's why I'm sharing this with the friends question. We were going to PE, which was in a gym, right? And we were walking out, and one of the girls in 6th grade, she said like the B word or the S word or something in conversation. And I was like totally shocked, because like I was afraid to think cuss words, because I was like, man, that's sin. And if I do that and I don't repent of it, like I will go to hell and burn forever. That's how I was thinking in 6th grade. And so I remember her doing it, and it was like the light bulb went off my head. I'm like, well, wait a minute. They don't all believe about God the same way I think about God. And it was like all of a sudden my eyes were like skeptical of everybody, like who really actually cares? You know what I mean? And so that happened in 6th grade. But is that same moment, there was like the cars would pull up like in a little U shape, right? And there's a chain, and you'd wait by the chain to step over to get in your car. Your mom picked you up. And I remember sitting there thinking in my little head and heart, like, I'm gonna live for God forever. You know what I mean? Like, not eternally, like the rest of my life, I'm going to be serious about being a Christian, you know, in other words, and I'm going to have like spiritual, like workout and a physical workout every night, you know, and like, that was my goal. I was going to do push-ups and sit-ups and read my Bible and pray every day, you know?
What, if you think on that, like why or how your faith was so strong at that time, like, can you elaborate on that? Because mine was the exact opposite. This is about you, not me, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did, like, we went to church a lot, right? So if I was bored in church, I'd read the Bible, right? I'd like count the light bulbs in the ceiling, you know, and the chandeliers, or I'd read my Bible or eat Altoids, you know. And there's a lot of boring sermons, but like I think I was always good at paying attention. So I'd listen to what they're saying. And then like in school, we had to read the Bible, right? Because I went to a Christian school, we had to memorize verses. And I actually cared about what it said. You know, I always like I was good at paying attention. So I'd pay attention to what it was saying. But we had to do King James Version every other year at flip-flop, NIV or King James Version. I don't know why. My guess now is that the board members were arguing back and forth. And so they would give in to what year the kids had to do. I don't know. But because of that, you read a lot of the Bible, and I believed it. I also read, I used to watch these cartoons. Have you ever heard of these? Superbook or Flying House? They're like kind of like anime Bible cartoons back in the day. And so I watched a ton of those. I don't know. That was when I saw that girl cuss. Somehow in my little psyche, I said, I'm going to do the opposite. And it was, I mean, yeah. And it wasn't really till like 7th grade, I probably had like a youth pastor in my life and another mentor that really guided me. So that was even before I had really anybody spiritually influencing in any significant way. I mean, we went to church, but it was like distant, you know what I mean? It's not like anybody was really pouring into my life or anything. at that point. Actually, that's not completely. No, yeah, around 6th grade, there's another pastor that came to that church, and he, the children's pastor, actually, because I used to volunteer with the little kids at our church, and like, you know, the felt boards and stuff like that. You put like a little felt Jesus on a board, and he's on a hill, and you tell the Sermon on the Mount or something. And then there's like a cookie station. The kids would go to a snack station. Then they went to like an audio thing where they listened to a story. And like we had that for Sunday school. And I was like a 10-year-old. I was helping the 5-year-olds do this, right, at my little station. And so a children's pastor came, and because I was on that team, which is crazy, they let a 10-year-old do that. Somehow we got connected. And so because of that, he actually was in my life, and he's a great father, a great man, I would say. But he kind of started to pour in my life a little bit just by like literally, I remember him inviting me over to his house, and he bought Tri-Tip, and we just played PlayStation, and like, that was it, you know. But I mean, I look back at the time, I didn't think like anything of it, but now I look back, I'm like, okay, here's a grown man who has kids of his own, inviting this other kid over who's like 6th grade age, you know, and he was intentionally trying to do that because I didn't really have a father figure, you know, like he wasn't doing it because he wanted to hang out, you know what I mean? He's a good man. And so I didn't realize that at the time. But now I get it. So I'm thankful for him. And then in 7th grade,
did you have other, did you have other friends around your age that took their faith as seriously as you did, or what were those influences?
I mean, time starts to tell that not many of them did, you know what I mean? That's why I said I went to a Christian school, but I thought it was Christians, you know, but like really, and I can't judge all of them. I'm just watching what a lot of them kind of did in high school and after high school does not reflect that their overarching concern was living before God, right? Like if I just look at the actions, that's not all of them, but I would say that's the majority of them. And maybe some of them had like falling away, you know, or whatever you want to call it. They had their moment of struggle. Like I don't want that to be the end of any of their stories, you know, like I'm there for any of them if they reach out, you know what I mean? So that's not meant to be hate their way. And then even in high school, I'd say when I got to junior high, because of youth group, very involved. And we had like Bible studies that were like led by people of our age. So like I remember going to one throughout high school, and it was just us high schoolers. Like there was no leader leading it, but we all showed up and we talked about the Bible and what we thought it meant. And, you know, I was, what would I say? I was always passionate about what I thought it meant, right? So I would argue in a mean way, but we would be intense about what we thought it meant with each other. And I think I learned a lot in those time periods, because I remember distinctly remembering one time in high school, because we had a Christian club also. And I remember arguing with somebody. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we were arguing some Christian theological point. And I realized in the middle of it, the other person I'm arguing with is right. Right? Like they have a stronger case. But yeah, I couldn't stop myself from still continue to argue the point I now believe was wrong, because I didn't want to be wrong, you know? And I remember in that moment going home later in the day, reflecting like, crap, I need to not do that in the future. You know what I mean? I need to find a way to humbly accept when I'm wrong. You know what I mean? And part of it also was, I think at that time I was learning that I trusted what my pastor said, like it was the word of God, and that he was infallible. And so some of that was like kind of shocking too. Like, whoa, I can't just trust whatever he says. You know what I mean? Because I'm hearing other arguments, and what he says doesn't hold up when it's pressed.
Was that in high school?
Yeah, high school age. Yeah. Gotcha. And I had one with that other pastor I mentioned earlier, which I don't remember if it was junior high or high school. Like it's fuzzy in that time frame. But I remember we went out to eat after church one Sunday. We went to Round Table, and the pastor that morning had preached and said, oh, for all of eternity, we're going to be 33 because Jesus was 33 in the resurrection. Right. And I took it like that's fact. You know what I mean? And so, and Round Table, I say to the children's pastor, who is an awesome guy, I say, did you hear it? We're going to be 33, you know, forever in eternity. That's the age of all humans, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's an interesting idea. And I was like, what? Like, it just caught me off guard. His response wasn't like, wow, pastor said that, it must be true. And I thought, he doesn't accept everything you know what I mean? Like, there's the inner workings of my
Yeah.
head. Like, he doesn't believe
Yeah.
everything he says just automatically. And so it made me start to be able to question, like, oh, he's not infallible. And then crazy stuff. I guess I'll say at this point, I guess we'll jump around, but that pastor at that church, not the children's pastor, the main pastor in Yuba City, and I don't really care. I'll dime them out by name. I don't care about trying to protect their identities, but it's Assemblies of God Church in Yuba City called Calvary Temple at the time. Those who no one's ever gonna, I doubt anybody's ever gonna see this, that would be there. But that pastor had a son, right? And in that group, we called them the corporates because they were so elite that it wasn't like, that was their nickname amongst everybody, was the corporates, and you couldn't really touch them or talk to them. And they were kind of elitist. They came from Chicago, Nick. All right, I blame it on your culture. But because they had this, like, he loved to be like, he was friends with Benny Hinn or something, and he loved to like kind of have that prestige. But his son, who was like 27 or something at the time, went out with my older sister, who was like 18 or 19 at the time. But my sister wasn't good enough, right, for him. And so they didn't like that. So they like dated in secret. And he's the worship pastor. And she wouldn't care I say any of this, but like, they got it on, right? And so I knew this, and I ended up leaking it to my youth pastor, just not even thinking that this would be a big deal. It just wouldn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to me. I was just like laughing, like, oh yeah, man, they were making out in the car. I got to videotape it, just being a stupid like teenager, And my youth pastor's like, what were they doing? I didn't even get it. Like, it was a big deal. Like, oh yeah, blah, blah. So blah, blah, this whole thing blows up behind closed doors, right? And like, we did a lot in the church. And basically, like, my sister wasn't good enough, and they were planning on running away, right? He was going to join the army, and they were going to run away and get married. And so the senior pastor like talked them out of it. And like, his wife got my sister in the car and was like, you're a Jezebel, blah, blah, blah. You did all this bad stuff, negative stuff. And so did this other new youth pastor who came. He took my sister and tell her how she was like the most evil person ever. And I'm like, okay. And so we basically got kicked out of the church at that time. And obviously I'm just a bystander because I'm like, I'm younger though. I'm not involved in this. But my mom got like, hey, you can't do the cyber Sunday school thing anymore. And my sister, and all of us did it. So we all kind of got left. And the youth pastor, not that new one, but the one before that, he basically resigned because he's like, I can't support the way they're handling this. I can't do this. So there's a big falling out at that moment. And a lot of other people over time fell out. But there's also people who like kind of covered up for him and also like sided with the pastor without knowing stuff. There's fear of losing out in community, and people side in those situations.
How did that affect your faith when it
So
occurred?
why that is major for me is it's another, just like when that pastor told me, oh, that's an interesting idea, it was another crack in trusting leadership as the final say so. And like, I guess putting your trust in man instead of trusting in God and going to the word. And so for me, that drove me to, I'm not going to put all my chips in on any spiritual leader. Now, I definitely have put a lot of chips in on spiritual leaders after that, and I paid for it. You know what I mean? Like, it collapsed. But that was a big one for me. It was like, oh, I've got to like dig into the word for myself. I cannot rely on these people and what they say. If I'm going to know it, I've got to know it for myself. And so I think it drove me deeper into understanding scripture for myself. I would say that for sure, and not leaning on them or trusting them. And like, someone said this to me once and still rings true to me. Like, the day we stand at the judgment seat of Christ, your mom's not going to be there. Your dad's not going to be there. You're not going to be able to say, my pastor said, you know what I mean? Like, none of that's going to bear weight. And the way I imagine it is like Jesus, and like, I don't think this is how it's really going to happen, but I'm just anecdotally saying how I think it'll happen. Like, I think Jesus will be like, hey, you had the Holy Spirit, you had scriptures, you're accountable. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, well, so-and-so said this. So I'm not leaning on that. But I did.
One thing
I've
thought about from time to time, just throw this in there, is there are qualitatively differentiated sins in the way Jesus talks to Pilate that I forget the exact line, but it's like they have the greater sin, or they that there's and there's another, I forget, there's another line about, the sin when you know what the right thing to do
Yes.
is versus
Yes.
not, a sin out of ignorance versus the sin out of
Yes.
deliberate disobedience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I forget what chapter it is, but it's in Luke 14, 17, somewhere around there. I always get it wrong. Maybe it's Luke 12. There's a parable about these servants, and some of them don't do what they're supposed to do, and some kind of do it, and some do it all the way. And it's the scariest parable because it says they enter, but some of them get a severe beating, others get a light beating. And I'm like, what? Like, what do I don't really, Jesus? Like, I don't know how to interpret this one. I'm gonna go read the next parable, but there does seem to be that sense to me. So I would, as difficult as that is to reckon with greater sins, I think it's true. I think it's hard to not overlook. But yeah, to the point. So yeah, that's where I was with that church. I did join the Marines right around that same time. I was finishing high school. My mom ended up getting a better job in Reading, which is where Bethel Church is. And so we had heard about Bethel Church. That AG church I was at did not like Bethel Church. I would say because they were jealous. That's what it felt like to me, because people were kind of like, there was a small group of people that were like hardcore members of that church who were pumped on Bethel stuff. And it felt like the senior pastor poo-pooed on it, not for theological reasons, but for jealousy reasons, right? That's my take. I don't know what's really going on in his heart, so I can't say. But yeah, so she got a better job up in there my senior year. So I kind of lived in between Yuba City and Reading my senior year of high school, because my grandparents still lived there and I was joining the Marines. So I lived with my grandparents. On weekends, I go up to Reading. And so from about the year 2000 is the first time I ever went to Bethel. We started getting to Bethel. And then I did the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, went to Reading, moved back to Reading, and started attending Bethel. And I would say the things that hooked me on Bethel, that got me then, when I was a sophomore in high school in 2000, I think it was the idea that, they do prophetic words, right? I'm not sure how much you know about this.
No, I mean, I know that they're tied to Pentecostalism,
Yeah.
and so I know generally speaking what Pentecostalism is, but assume I know very little specifics.
Okay. Yeah. And in 2000, like, Bethel's not a huge thing it is today, right? It's like this just unknown little AG church that some people think is like having really cool stuff happen. And so prophetic word basically, and like I had lots of dreams as a kid. I remember I had this repeating dream about this lady who was a Catholic lady that was friends with my mom. And it actually meant a lot to her, and it helped her make a decision in her marriage, right? And I had it numerous times. As I told my mom, like, hey, I want you to tell my friend, as a kid. So like, I believe God wants to communicate with us, right? In dreams, like I'm open to that. And then Bethel is doing these things like prophetic words. And there's like, we can get in the nuance of words of knowledge on stuff. I don't care to do that. But basically the concept that I liked was like, hey man, God still cares about what's going on with you little guys on earth. And he still speaks actively to them. And so I was excited about that idea, and the idea that God would heal people, right? Would I agree with all of Bethel's theology today on prophecy and healing? Probably not, right? I can almost certainly say not. I don't care enough to like dig into all of their theology on it, even though I'm there. So I don't know it all. But yeah, those are the ideas that God is active and involved in people's lives today, and he actually wants to reach out to them. And I thought that was amazing. So I was in for those reasons. But I went off to the Marine Corps. Go ahead.
Is like both of those ideas though don't strike me as unique in Christianity or even Pentecostalism. Like aren't both of those ideas just generally accepted, or no?
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak for all Pentecostalism or charismania, but I think it's the fact that they were actually doing it. And it looked like I remember a guy at like a tent meeting literally down by the river bottoms. And this is before Bethel was big. He came up to me and gave me like a prophetic word. It was nothing like crazy, but from what I remember, it was like, whoa, how are you doing this? You know what I mean? And this is before Facebook or anything, right? So it's not like he was like looking up my stuff or even know who it was. Like, and so that was shocking. And obviously I think there's some things that like maybe I believe that are not true that were like falsified today. Like if I look back on it, like there's a lot of healings where they like take a person's legs, like one leg shorter than the other leg, right? And I'm like, I didn't know there were so many of these people in the world. Like apparently they're everywhere, you know, like I don't know. That's just the way you hear about that miracle in particular all the time. It's like, wow, apparently there's a lot of short leg people in the world. But I remember one happening in the room. And, you know, some people say they're just pulling a leg or they're shifting their hips. Like, I don't know. But at the time, I was like, whoa. And so it shocked me as like real right in front of your eyes. Obviously, now I question it. But I mean, I do think there are real healings. Like, I remember at that AG church, we were going there. I'm in high school. We have a friend who's not really following Christ at the moment. She's going to come pick us up. And because the church is over, we left a little bit early. We're waiting in the lobby room, right? There's like the main sanctuary. There's doors to a lobby, then there's doors to outside courtyard. And we're waiting in the lobby for her to come get us. And it's nighttime, Sunday night. And she's coming. And as she comes in the door from outside, the guest speaker, who's actually Bob Johnson, who's Bill Johnson's brother from Bethel Church, he comes in through the doors. Our pastor did not like him either. And he has a sketchy background too. So like, I'm not validating this guy, but this story is true. And he comes through and he yells, this is very charismatic. Like I doubt they do this at the Catholic Church, but he yells, fire in your belly. Right. And he sticks his hand out at her. And she just walked in the door to pick up me and my friend. And she starts shaking, goes, ah! And she falls down right there. We're just going to go get lunch. She's not even like following God at the moment. And she goes, ah, and she falls down and she's like out, as you would think in like some Pentecostal meeting or something. And literally what nobody else knew is that she had ovarian cancer at the time. And she got healed of ovarian cancer right then and there. Whatever, man. And I always thought Bob Johnson was kind of a jerk, right? Like, and like I learned a little bit more about him when we went to like Bethel and stuff. I always thought he was like really rough around the edges and like not a guy I'm going to model the way he lives or what he does or preaches, but he was in the AG circuit. And so AG's churches have other AG guys come talk at him. So I wonder if my pastor kind of like had to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. So yeah, that is one miracle I believe to this day that, she would have to come and tell me, no, that was fake. I lied about having ovarian cancer and getting healed for me to not believe it.
Yeah. How did that affect her personally?
Yeah. She's like hardcore for Jesus today. So, I mean, that didn't solve all her walk with Jesus from what I know. Cause after high school, I joined the Marines. So I was kind of like out of the picture for 4 years and then I was in Reading. So I was disconnected from these people. But today I see her on Facebook and she's like, kids are reading the Bible. She's like saying something about Jesus all the time. So I know she had some other rough cycles there, but today looks like she's loving Jesus and serving him. So, yeah. I imagine it's things like that you can't get too far. You know what I mean? Like if Jesus is chasing you like that, if you will, I mean, you're kind of roped in, right? You're not going to get away from him forever. So yeah, those are big impacts. I joined the Marine Corps. I should say this. When I was in junior high school, I had this guy, Jay Meter, as like a mentor. So at that church, he came up to me one Sunday night. I think I'm in 7th grade. I think it's 7th grade. He comes up to me one day and I knew who he was, but I didn't know him, right? Like we weren't like friends or anything at this point. He comes up to me and he says, God told me to teach you how to he said 3 things. I can never remember the third one. It's probably in some old journal I have. But he said to teach you how to pray and to study the Bible and something else. And so literally after that, as a 7th grader, and I always think of like how crazy that is. Like as a 7th grader, what look did I have on my face? Like probably just this disinterested kid, right? Like I just want to go skateboard, you know, like, but I actually did care about the things of God. And I was actually down, you know what I mean? So like as a 7th grader, I was down. And so we literally started meeting at his house and he would do Bible studies and like, it was all over my head. So over my head, right? But he gave me like a concordance and he gave me like Nave's Topical Bible and he gave me like all these other like Christian resources. And he'd take me to the Christian bookstore every now and then, be like, hey, pick out a book, you know, pick out a Christian book, and I would get it. And like, I kind of set myself. Now I don't know where I got this idea, but somehow I had the idea, like, if I'm going to know God, I have to read a lot. I don't know. I just made that assumption. And so I was like kind of committed to trying to read whatever he put for me, but I don't like reading. But I like learning.
Were you a good student? What was that like?
I think I have a high intellectual aptitude. So I was like the kid who could get good grades on tests, but I was too lazy to do my homework. You know what I mean? And I think probably because I didn't have really a father in the home and my mom worked full time, single mom, she's coming home and sleeping, like I wasn't really forced to do or try hard at school. So I did the minimum, right?
The slacker, precocious kid archetype is very common in this not
So I
space.
fit in.
Slacker, precocious.
Yeah. But I was good at paying attention. So that's what would save me is like when I was in class, I would focus and pay attention and I would do whatever work I could in class. But once I was out of class, I was like, nah, I'm skateboarding. I'm not doing school. I'm out of here. So yeah, I didn't like to read, but I wanted to do the work to know God, if you will. That's the way I thought of it.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So did so it's really interesting because it sounds to me like you were pretty independent minded, but still like a rule follower. Like you really did want to do right by the rules that you were presented.
Yes.
And is that accurate?
Definitely
Like, did your mother instill
followers.
that in you, or just these these masculine role models that presented themselves in
Yeah,
your
like
life?
I'm really thankful to God for those two guys. One is Pastor Brett, and the other one's Jay Meter. And I would include this guy named James Tyler, who's the youth pastor. Like those three dudes in that season of my life, like they were the godly men I had as examples, right? And so I mean, there was a long season of my life, not even being connected with Jay, that I would thank God probably weekly for Jay. You know what I mean? Like and just very grateful. Like, I don't know, like God, thank you for sending that person into my life. Like, I just am grateful for that. Like, what are the odds? I mean, it's like that question, like, what if I was born in a Muslim country? You know what I mean? To a Muslim family, like I'd probably be Muslim, like how scary is that? That's terrifying to me. You know what I mean? Why am I so lucky to be born where I'm born? I don't know how to answer that question, but thank you, Jesus, is all I can do at that point. So yeah, I definitely rule following, want to do what's right. That's definitely there. My sister is not like that. And sometimes I envy her. I'm like, man, she doesn't care what anybody thinks. She just does it. I'm like, man, I wish I could be like that sometimes. But yeah, so yeah, join the Marines. In the Marines, I'm Christian, right? That was, that's an unpleasant experience.
What was well, let's talk about that real quick. So leaving high school, did you consider going to college versus, and like, what was the thing that pushed you to join the Marines?
Yeah. So the two options I had on the table, once again, I think like having the lack of like a father figure in my life, like kind of directing me and telling me like, you know what I mean? Giving me guidance. I didn't really know what to do. I actually, at some point in high school, because Columbine happened, right? Like I forget what year that happened, but I remember that happening and thinking, well, because I don't know what I want to do after high school, I'm probably going to die as a martyr in high school. I remember having that thought, like, that's probably why I don't have any dreams after high school. That was like my own little internal dialogue and say, because I'm not going to be there. And that's why God hasn't given me any, so I'll just die as a martyr in high school. That's what I thought, but it didn't happen. So I was kind of like, well, crap, what am I going to do now? So the options on the table for me was one, I was looking at going to a school of aeronautics, right? The one in particular that I was the farthest along with was in Oklahoma. It's called Spartan School of Aeronautics. So I was like set up to go there because I want to be a pilot. And then the other thing was my friend had joined the Marines. And so he was talking to me about the Marines. And then at that point, like I knew this all along that my grandpa was a Marine, but like it never really clicked until all of a sudden I started thinking about the Marines. And I realized, oh, my grandpa was a Marine, And so it just got stuck in my head. I think I watched Black Hawk Down one too many times. I know it's Army guys in that movie, but for whatever reason, I was like, man, I want to go be a BA and, sneak around and kill bad guys, So I joined the Marines.
Was that before 9/11?
Yeah. That happened. 9/11 was the beginning of my senior year. I don't remember when I first talked to a recruiter. Obviously, I graduated in 2002, so I didn't go till 2002 that summer.
Okay.
But I don't remember the first time. First time I talked was to a Navy recruiter. And he was like, hey, you can do like nuclear stuff on subs. And I was like, that sounds terrible. I want to go do the dumbest job I can do called the infantry, So yeah, I joined the infantry. And I think being the Marines as an 18-year-old, it's just a culture shock. One weekend you wake up when you want, you go to the movies when you want, you get candy at 7-Eleven. The next weekend, they're forcing you to shower with 100 other dudes at the same time, right? Like, you're like, what have I done with my life? And it feels like a prison sentence. You got 4 years of this. First year and a half, I was very like, I don't know if I would say depressed, but I hated life. And I think it's just hard, that culture shock, being on your own, you know what I mean, in an a very unfun environment where everybody's yelling and screaming. There's lots of stress and pressure. And so, but after about a year and a half, I remember I called this lady who's also a spiritual mentor from my high school years. And I was like, because I was like, man, I want to quit, man. I'll smoke weed or something, get kicked out, you know, like, I don't even know where to find those people because I've never done this in my life, but I'll find them, you know? And so she's like, she basically slapped me across the face through the phone. She said, stop having a pity party for yourself. And like, no joke, for whatever reason, that snapped me out of it, of feeling sorry for myself and having a bad day and how bad I literally, like, it wasn't that hard after that, like mentally, like having the sucky life in the Marine Corps. Like after that, I don't know what that did, but it like slapped me out of being stupid or something. And for like the next 2.5 years, 2 years, like, it wasn't like, I would say fun. I mean, I was waiting to get out, but it wasn't miserable. But I think it's also that time period, about a year it takes to adjust to like being away from home and not being homesick and used to everything you're used to. So yeah, the Marine Corps, served God. Like, I still was a Christian during that time. I actually led a couple people to the Lord, if you will, while we were overseas, because they were scared of dying, right? Like, so they came to me because they knew I was a Christian, right? And they're like, tell me about this God thing. And I was like, all right, I'll tell you about this God thing, you know? But yeah, and I made some good Christian friends in Orange County when I was down there. Like, a good group of people down there who were praying. I heard about these people who would pray on Friday nights, and I thought, man, anybody who's like spending their Friday night not partying in this area, you know, in South Orange County, they got to really love Jesus. So like, these are my people. So I was like, I'll go to this group and get to know them and hang out with them. And they were solid, man. Some of those guys, like, I didn't stay super connected to them after I left, but like some of them went and became missionaries in Iraq during like ISIS and stuff like that. And then I remember these dudes, like a few of them who are like kind of more like leaders, man. They were so like nonchalant and chill and nice, but they would do like fast, like 20. And these are like some skinny guys. Like sometimes you get like the bigger guys, like, oh yeah, fast not too hard for you. You got a lot to feed off of, right? But I remember these guys they wouldn't make a big deal about it. They wouldn't tell anybody, but somebody else would like slip it to you. Like, hey, yeah, he's in the middle of a 21-day fast. You're like, oh, really? I didn't even know it. We just surfed for 2 hours. How can he surf for 2 hours? You know? But yeah, they were pretty cool. That was a cool group of people who really loved Jesus. So I'm thankful to Jesus for that group of people for sure during that time. Because it's like he put you with like-minded people, right? Who cared about what you cared about at the same level you care about it. So I'm always grateful when he does that, because you don't always have that in life. You don't always have other believers around you that are like-minded with the same shared value system. So whenever I get that, I think I try to be cognizant of it and thankful to the Lord for it, that it's a special thing. Yeah, so that was that time. And then when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I was just
were you deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yeah, I went to Iraq a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you some of those stories if you want to hear them.
It's interesting. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be purely focused on Christian or religious stuff.
Okay.
I mean, really, we want to get to know you. So
yeah. So yeah, that so I joined at a time the war started. I forget what war it's called, the Iraqi war, whatever. I don't remember. Operation Iraqi Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom. I don't remember. Something like that. I think they changed the name at some point. We're like, well, what is it now? Because we have like little ribbons you get, right? And we're like, well, which ribbons do I qualify for? You know, and we're like, and you have to figure out the dates and times. Were you there during this date for this amount of times? And like, okay, whatever. But it started like March 15th or something is when they went into Iraq. Something like that in 2003. And so it just so happened that when I went to boot camp, we were like the first group. You went straight to boot camp, and after boot camp, you went this thing called SOI, School of Infantry. And right after you join infantry, we finished that course. You went straight to Iraq. Like literally, we got put on an airplane to meet our units because our units were already over there. What normally would happen is you do boot camp, you do your School of Infantry, then you would go to your unit and you do a training cycle for 6 months. Then you would deploy for 6 months, come back and rest for 6 months, train for 6 months, deploy 6 months. blah, blah, blah. But the war screwed all that up. So the time sequence was off. So we went straight out of school. We were like the first group to do it since Vietnam that went straight to like war zone out of like School of Infantry. I had joined because I wanted to do special forces. Being the smart guy I was, I didn't even know the Marine Corps didn't have special forces. A recruiter's not going to tell me that. He told me, oh, yeah, recon. But the way you do it is you join the infantry, and then you can try out for recon after you've been in infantry 2 years. That's the way to do it. So I said, sweet, let's do it. Let's sign up. Because I wanted to like blow stuff up and shoot guns and be like BA, right? And so the cool thing is my job became, it's 0351. I think they discontinued it. But it's like you're with the infantry, but your job is rocket launchers and demolitions. And so that's what I got trained in. And so we got deployed. We went over to Iraq, and we're trying to get to our unit. So it's funny. You think the military is super organized, and it is, and it isn't. And like literally, we just hitched a ride with some guys in Humvees that were going out and said, hey, do you know where our unit's at? Can you take us? And so they took us, but they took us to a different unit. I was supposed to go 3-1, but we went to 1-4, and so we just stayed with them the rest of that deployment for, I forget, it was 6 or 8 months. And then we came back overseas, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to send you to your real unit." We're, what the freak? We just did a whole combat tour with these guys. I don't want to go become the new guy at a new unit. Leave me here. So they did some paperwork, and we were able to stay there with those guys. But because of it, usually you have like a cycle of boots. They're called boots with the new guys, right? And they get tasked with all the sucky stuff. And the older Marines haze them and treat them like crap. But because we came to a unit that had just received boots like 6 months prior, we're like the boots. And so we never really got like new boots that we got the haze, and it threw off the cycle. And so we never got to be like the senior Marines that just lived the lush life, and we had the new guys do everything, because it screwed up the cycle with us coming and whatever. But yeah, that first time we didn't see a lot of combat. There was some combat. I remember, one of the craziest ones. This is just to tell you how screwed up stuff is, right? I mean, the first time was radically different than the second time in 2004. Like our Humvees didn't even have doors on them. We didn't have armor. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have sights on our guns. Like we had like old school flak jackets. Like it was old. And we had these things called mop suits. A mop suit is like a chemical bio warfare suit where you put on with your gas mask, because Iraq was firing Scuds into Kuwait, right, at the time. And the fear was we were going to get biological warfare. And so this one time we had left this Kuwait base before we went to Iraq. I don't even know why. You just kind of get in the Humvee and do whatever your older Marines tell you to do. And you always have your mop suit with you to put on in case. And we're talking it's 120 degrees outside. You're already in full camouflage, right? Your camis. And so we get there, and all of a sudden we hear the alarm go off over the radio, like incoming Scud, and it hit, because usually they got shot out of the sky by Patriot missiles, right? And we're like, oh crap. And we couldn't get contact with them. And so it sounded to us like we mopped up in our mop suits and gas masks, and we're like 4 of us in a Humvee, and I don't know where the frick we are. We're out in the middle of nowhere. Like literally it looks like desolation. And so we start driving back, and we thought the base got hit. We're like, are we the only guys alive now? Like us 4 Marines? Turns out they didn't get hit. It hit outside the camp, and it wasn't biological. But for a solid like 30 minutes there, we're like, man, this could be crazy. But so that was one funny story. Another one, when I was with our unit 1-4, we were tasked with guarding a bank in Babylon, right? Literally, it's called Al-Hilla, but it was Babylon. Biblical Babylon. We were there. And I actually got to see, I actually stood in the room because we got to tour ancient Babylon. You know that Daniel says that hand appeared on the wall, meeny, tekel parson. That wall, part of it still stands. It goes up from like about 3 feet off the ground to 6 foot. And then like they built on top of it, and Saddam then built even on top of that. But part of that original wall is still there in the room that it would have appeared and happened in. So I thought that was cool. Like, man, I'm in the room where that hand appeared and wrote meeny, tekel parson. And then he took us into what is likely Daniel's lion's den. Now, as a kid, I always thought it's like a hole drawn in the ground, you know, like as if you see that often. These caves are holes in the ground. And there's like lions down there. Like, how did they get them in and out? But this was more like stairs that went down into the ground, and there was rooms cut out right into the earth. And the guy told us that they either stored food in here or this was the lion's den. And so there's a good chance this is the lion's den. I mean, it was really dark down there. And so possibly I was in Daniel's lion's den also, which I thought was awesome. So that was a pretty cool thing. But back to the bank story. We're on this bank, And they would drop off like, I don't know, 6 of us Marines, right? And there's like maybe 1 sergeant and a whole bunch of like privates and lance corporals, right? Like low ranking guys in the middle of the city, full of other Iraqis. You can jump from roof to roof. Like we're talking like 4-story, 3-story, 5-story, 2-story buildings everywhere. And I didn't know this at the time, right? There was this one sergeant, Sergeant Brown, the worst guy ever. Terrible. I want to say explicitives, but I cannot, I will not, but I want to in reference to him. Terrible dude. Fat turd also. Okay. Like he was just not in good shape. As Marines, you're supposed to be in good shape and fit, right? Especially Legion Marines, not him. All right. But whatever, we're there. And he's like the main guy with us. He's like our little leader during that time. And so one of us would go stand guard, 1 or 2 of us down at the front doors in the bottom floor. The rest of us are either on the roof sleeping because we're taking shifts guarding this bank that has a whole bunch of dinar or whatever. I don't know why this was our job, but it was our job. You know, I just kind of get told, go stand at the door from, you know, whatever time to whatever time, and you just do what you're told. But you go up on the roof. And at one point, I didn't realize this because I'm the Christian guy. So guys like would even offer me alcohol because they knew I wasn't going to drink it, right? They all got drunk because the Iraqis from the other roof came over, and they make, in Iraq at the time, alcohol is illegal, but all the Iraqis make their own moonshine. So they have like all these rules, Islam they're supposed to follow, but they don't really follow them. And so they come over with moonshine, like in their own little jug, right? And all these Marines get drunk, right? So everybody's drunk. I mean, there might be 2 of us sober, and if things go to crap, and like this is like when Blackwater's happening, people are getting hung from bridges and stuff. Like I'm thinking worst case scenario in my head, like I'm not firing 1 bullet unless I have to, because if this comes down to needing that 1 bullet, I better have it on hand, right? And so they're wasted out of their minds on the roof. They're even shooting dogs in the alleyways with the Iraqis. With the Iraqi guys, random Iraqi guys, they're handing them their guns and stuff. And I'm like, this feels real unsafe. Like, second time we did it, we would have never done things like that. But that's the way it was the first time we were there. And I remember apparently this one sergeant, I won't say his name, and this other PFC Lance Corporal, low-ranking guy, they got in a taxi by themselves in the middle of freaking Babylon, Al-Hila, Iraq, because they heard there was these gypsies, these traveling gypsies that had, what would you call it? Man, I can't think of the right word, but basically prostitutes. They had prostitutes, and they were going to go sleep with them. They got in an Iraqi taxi, 2 Marines, a sergeant and Lance Corporal PFC, or whatever his rank was at the time, and they drove out to these gypsies to try to sleep with prostitutes. This is insane to me. It's insane to me. Like, you guys are, but that's what they did. And so we knew this when we came back, and we're still like boots, newbies. We have no say, whatever. When we got back to our little base or camp where we were at, we held this like leverage over that sergeant that we hated. And basically we're like, you're not going to treat us like crap, or we're going to tell everything about you, and you're going to get court-martialed. And that was our little chip over him, and life got better for us. So we held that over. But when I first got to that unit, I had to stay on post, like guard, and there's like 2-hour shifts all throughout the night and stuff like that. And then multiple guys that you told me, next firefight I'm in, I'm shooting Sergeant Brown and killing him. Multiple guys told me that. Like, I didn't elicit that from them. They're like, yeah, I hate that guy. You know, because you're in 2 hours, you're going to talk, you know. And multiple guys told me they were going to kill him next time. We never got another firefight, so they never got a chance to kill him, but they wanted to. But yeah, there's more stuff happened than that. And then the big one was my next tour, right? So we go home. You're stoked to be home. A couple funny things. I remember, like, you don't know how good a toilet is till you get home, right? Like, because we were stirring our own crap in 50-gallon drums with diesel fuel and stirring it with a stick, right? And that's how we were getting rid of it. Not the funnest thing. And so toilets were amazing. I remember going to this mall in San Diego, and I remember thinking, whoa, there are so many like beautiful girls. I do not remember this many beautiful girls, because for like 6-8 months, you've never seen a girl. All of a sudden, every girl is beautiful, right? And then I remember like 2 weeks later being in that mall and be like, where did all the pretty girls go? You know what I mean? Because I like adjusted again, right? But at first you're like, man, any girl is beautiful. Not that all girls aren't beautiful. Just that's 19, 20-year-old Will talking there, okay? So we come back, we do a training cycle. A couple cool things for my career in the Marines was I got selected to go to like an assault climbers course, which is pretty rare. It was like me and this one guy, our first guy ever to ace it, because you get tested like book study test, but you also get tested on your climb. So you climb, you have to put pro in the cracks and all stuff, and they see if you do your knots right. And so because of that, I got like a meritorious award from like the colonel or whatever. So that was really cool. But I also got I forget what order I went to schools, but because I think I did well in a school and I passed it well, they sent me to other schools because they go on a MU. You have to have so many Marines that qualify for different schools. And if they fail, then you don't qualify and you're going to get your butt chewed, right? You're going to be a deep crap. So they want to make sure when they send you to school, you can pass. So they sent me other schools. So I got to go to like an advanced demolition school. And then the cool one for me was because I wanted to do like the special force thing. They sent me, this is the first time they ever sent regular infantry guys to this school, but it was advanced breaching school or something like that, a breachers course. And so at that school, there was 6, there was no MARSOC when I was in, but there was Force Recon. They were the top of the line. Then the Force Recon guys became MARSOC, but they were in that school. And so I was like, whoa, Force Recon guys, this is awesome. I'm in a school with them. And then there were 6 of them. And then there was me and my partner that were just regular infantry guys that typically never go to this school. And then there was 2 SWAT guys from LA and there was 2 Navy SEAL guys. And so we 6 were on a team and there was 6 Force guys on a team. And then we went through the whole breaching course together. And that was really cool, getting to meet all those guys and doing that. And you just kind of get, and after we went to that course, this is why it was awesome, because no one had ever been to that course. That was like our level infantry. So they thought we were really special, right? So they didn't know what to do with us when we came back. So the next time when we go to Iraq, we were telling them how to use us. And so even though we weren't high ranking, but because we seemed elite, we got to like kind of play on that and be like, yeah, and choose what we do. So it was a nice little perk.
Sweet. Because, okay, so this is so interesting because there's the top down on high eliteness that you are this rank. And then there's the spirit of eliteness that is this vibe or this sense that people know what you can do and who you are. And to the extent that the top rank is accommodating of the spirit of eliteness, those two things can work in tandem.
Yeah. I mean, in the infantry, rank's always going to win, right? Like you never, but because of it, when the cool thing that was better about being in the combat zone versus being back in the rear, like in garrison, is like everything you do actually matters. And because of that, they care less about the stupid stuff that they care about back when you're in the rear. Like when you're back in America, I was at Camp Pendleton, right down in between Orange County and San Diego County. Making sure you have your haircut once a week and it's right, and your uniform's reg and it's crisp and clean and all that stupid stuff, giving the formal greeting of the day to the higher ranking people. Like you don't do all that, you can get chewed out. But it doesn't matter how good of gun shooting you are, how good or proficient you are, actually your warfighting skills, right? But when you're in Iraq, people don't give a crap about that as much. Like, did you shave today? They don't give a crap. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you got to still shave, but like, I'm not going to get chewed out for that, especially if I'm one of the better proficient Marines at doing my job. They're going to know that. And especially like in my case, that second time we're there, like, I ended up getting in charge of, I was still just a Lance Corporal. It should be a staff sergeant in charge of my section of Marines if everything was perfect. We had a sergeant at the time in charge of it. But we went on this one mission in Najaf. And, you know, we would go on all these missions, usually at night, right? And we go raid and they tell us there's bad guys there and we'd have some plan. Most of the time there's nobody there. Most of the time we go and it's like some grandpa drinking tea, right? Oh, wrong, nobody, bad intel. You know, sometimes like the cops, the Iraqi police would like set you up for an ambush. So you didn't know what you could trust, right? So you're always kind of like watching your back a little bit on the intel we got at least. But there was a few times, there was about a month where we were seeing engagement like every night, right? Something like that from my memory in August or something like that, 2004. So we went, I'll get to the major one and I won't mention all the little, I don't know what you call them, little firefights, something. But we went on this one to Najaf and they give us a little speech like, hey, there's not a lot of you guys. There's a good chance not all of you guys will come back, right? They would tell us that ahead of time, right? And I remember on this one specific mission, we were going to Najaf. We go to the chow hall ahead of time. And man, there's so many stories, but the chat hall, I remember it was so sober. Like everybody's not joking and laughing this time, like usually, right? And so we're just sitting there, and I remember just thinking to myself, well, you just got to do what you've got to do and not worry about like dying, right? You just got to do your job and not think about anything else, because that could cause you to die, right? Just do what you're supposed to do. And so I was like having my own little talk in my head as we're sitting there just eating, dead-eyed, And so we were leaving at whatever zero dark time we were leaving, and we get in these tracked vehicles, and you drive for hours. You have no idea where you're going. Like, you don't know left from right, like it's the middle of the dark in the country. You don't know. I don't know these streets. I can't read the signs. I have no idea if this is north, south, east, west. You're in all the diesel fumes are in the back of the track vehicle. You can like barely breathe. And so I was like knocked on the guy, like on the gun, on the 50 cal on top. I was like, hey, bro. And like, because I was like a little bit senior Marine, but not like total senior Marine, I could like, hey, you come down here. You breathe the diesel fumes. I want the fresh air. I don't care if we get attacked. I'm going to breathe fresh air when I die. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be on the 50 cal. You come down here. And so I went up there and breathed fresh air for a while until we got where we're going. So these track vehicles come, and it's there's a whole, this is the oldest graveyard in the world. This is what they told us, right? So I'm just going what I was been told. Like, fact check me, whatever. I don't care. It's like 5 miles by 5 miles. But it's not a graveyard like we have graveyards. There's like little buildings in the graveyard, right? They have like catacombs, and they have little buildings under the ground, right? So it's like yeah, it's insane. It's like the worst place you could fathom to ever have a firefight, because anybody could come out of anywhere at any moment, right? It's a terrible place to fight. So that's on one side, and we had done fighting there. Then there's a street, and then there's like the city right there. And we're talking like, once again, like 3-story, 4-story, 5-story, 6-story buildings, 1-story buildings, alleyways, like it's a city, and it's like crappy, it's all stone. And I'm not sure if it's always crappy or if it's crappy because we bombed the crap out of it. But in my view, it was like nothing was furnished, like any of these buildings we went in, I'm like, are these buildings just all unfurnished? I don't know. I'm like, did they take all their stuff out before we got here? But the army apparently went in before and said, hey, get out of the city. We're coming in. If you're here, we're treating you like a hostile. So they did that for like so many days before we come in. So we come in, and only people there are supposed to be bad guys, right? And they know we're coming, right? So like, that's not the greatest setup for fighting, right? Like, hey, we're gonna come at this day on this time, on this road. And so we come, and whatever, it's the middle of the night, these track vehicles line up like diagonally on this road, and we fall out the back, and it's buildings on the side. We're stacked along the building side. And as you can mean, a building, there's like building, alleyway, street, whatever you want to call it, building, it's kind of set up like that. And we're going through some of these buildings, and I'm just, once again, I have no clue what the big picture is. I just know what I do on the small scale. I follow behind this guy. I clear the room like this. You know what I mean? If they call for an explosive breach, I do this, like I'm just following the guy in front of me, doing what I do in my small little arena, right? To tell you, we don't always do things perfect. I mean, we're the infantry, so we don't get to train that much. But I remember this other mission we went, it feels super high speed. We got like NVGs on. We got our little green lasers pointing all over the room. Nobody can see unless you have NVGs on, right? But it looks super high speed with your NVGs on. Like, we look
night
like
vision goggles for the non-military people.
That's right. Yes, night vision goggles. And I remember going through this place, and there's like this light on the side. So if there's any normal light, it'll just blow out your NVG. So I flip them up because I'm like, what the crap? And I'm like not number one dude in the stack. I'm like 7 or 8. You know what I mean? Like on this one, this isn't this mission, different mission. And there are these old guys in this room just sitting there by a candle having tea. And I'm like, nobody has secured them. I was like, what the freak? Like 7 or 8 of you guys went past this room and past these guys. They could have killed us all. You know what I mean? Like, but so we look super high speed going through this building, all these green lasers. And I'm like, what the frick? We missed 2 guys right here. How is this possible? But whatever, just to diss us and how bad we were. But so whatever, we're clearing buildings. And at one point on that mission, there's like a hallway, and you get taught hallways are like kill zones. You don't want to stay in a hallway. Like, for whatever reason, I don't know. I guess the theory is bullets are going to ricochet off the walls and just funnel right at you. I don't know what the theory is, but they're kill zones. You don't want to be in them. And I have a pack on, a day pack. And because I have a rocket launcher with me, I'm a rocket launcher. I've got 3 rockets, I think, with me. It was 2 or 3. And they're like, I don't know, like they're pretty big, like 2.5 feet by 5-inch diameter. I'm not sure. And I have a M16 with me, and I've got a 9mm, and I can't fit through the doorway with all this crap on me. So I tell the guy, kick me through, bro. I was like, kick the freaking back as hard as you can, because I cannot stay here, right? Like, this is not safe. And so he kicks me through, and eventually we clear this building. And so we decide, because of that, we're going to leave our pack and our rocket launcher and our rockets here. As we go back out, and we cross this other alleyway and go clear these other buildings we're going to take. Because the plan was, I knew this much, was to take these buildings and operate like clandestine out of them, right? The bad guys were not supposed to know we're in those buildings, but we're going to operate out of them. I don't know who chose these buildings, whatever. We're in these buildings. So we go back outside and we're stacking up to cross this alleyway, and a couple guys cross it and they get machine gun fire come at them from the alleyway. They're getting shot at, right? And so I hear somebody, I'm now two guys from the alleyway. It's my partner in front of me on Spock, and then it's me, and then it's the alleyway. And then there's guys behind me in the stack, and there's other people already have crossed. And somebody yells, machine gunners up, right? And I get it. The strategy is we're going to have our machine gunners go lay down the alleyway, and they're going to lay down suppressing fire so we can cross, and we can run across without getting shot at. And I remember thinking to myself, man, it sucks to be them. They're in my platoon, right? Because we're a weapons platoon. But I usually get attached to the 0311s, which are the guys who just clear houses all the time, because my job is to support them. So they go in and they start laying down suppressing fire, and then an RPG comes in, and it blows up. Like, I don't know where it blew up. To me, it looked like it was the corner of the far building, but maybe it landed right next to them. I don't know where it landed, but it blew up, and it was just like the movies. It was so crazy. Like, all of a sudden you can't see. It's a bright flash of light. Your hearing is ringing, and like things are like that jittering kind of like look, and you're like disoriented, trying to like reorient yourself to what's going on. Where am I? And your vision's coming back and the hearing's coming back. And by the time all my physical senses are coming back to me, one of those guys, my friend Bagby, he's in the middle of the road, which is like terrible tactics. Like, you wouldn't go stand in the middle of the road. He's like standing up and he's like looking at his hands. Like, and I've talked to other guys, and some of them remember different than me, but this is how I remember it, right? So if just in case one of them hear and say, that's not how it happened, I'm like, this is how I remember it. You can remember it how you remember it. He's standing up looking at his hands, and he's saying, oh, my hands, my hands. And previously, because Bagby was one of my friends, I love that guy. His dad was a general in the Army, and he joined like the Marines to like spite his dad or something. It was hilarious. But so he was looking, and his thumbs had like, and I don't know how severe this is, but they had like been blown to the side. But he had previously said, I just want to get like shot or something so I can get a Purple Heart. Like, that's what he had said. I'm like, and this is all going through my head as you're seeing all this, you know, like your brain is processing fast. And so I remember seeing him. I don't remember what happens to him. I'm trying to make sense. The next thing I know, Spock is screaming in front of me, and he's screaming because Watson hit one of his good buddies, one of those other machine gunners. He has been like blown up. Like his jaw. This is what I remember seeing. His jaw had been like blown open, like off, like hanging there, and you could like a gaping hole into his throat mouth. I remember looking at him thinking, you're dead. Like, you can't survive that. Like, you're dead. That was my thought. And Watson, he was making this like gurgling sound. Like, it was a gurgle, but it was like, it had the tone of a little boy crying for his mom. Like, I wrote that down in my journal later. Like, it was such a disheartening sound to hear, because it was like the saddest sound, but it was also like, you don't even have like the proper ability to communicate right now. You know what I mean? Because you're like jacked the frick up. And Spock is like holding him, and they were like good buddies. And they're like kneeling is like how I remember. Like, he's like, Spock's like kind of like kneeling, sitting on the ground, and Watson's like in his lap, like with his back to his Spock's chest type deal. And he's screaming Corpsman up. And I'm thinking, where the frick is the Corpsman? This is taking forever. And who knows how long it's taking? Maybe it's like taking 5 seconds. I don't know. But I was like, this is taking way too freaking long. So I turn around and I look back, and the Corpsman is right behind me in the stack. And I'm like, my mind thinks, what the freak? You know what I mean? And I say, that's you, stupid. And he's like higher ranking than me. You know what I mean? And it's like he just was locked up. And the second I said to him, he snapped up and he ran. He started doing whatever Corpsmans are supposed to do. But he had like froze for a minute. And then so they must have got loaded on the tracks and evacuated, you know, to like Germany or something. I didn't see that part. I don't know what's going on in that road. But someone says, run for it. So I guess we're just running for it now. So we run across the alleyway, and we go and we clear this like 5-story building. It's got 4 rooms. It's like basically like 1, 2, 3, 4, like in a square with like a little staircase in the center. And we go up and we clear a room. And I think whatever reason, me and three other guys, we go in this room that faces out towards the graveyard and the alleyway. So it's on the corner of the building, right? And we're going to look out into the graveyard and watch for bad guys. And the sun is starting to come up now. And I remember there's this little ledge in the room that you can like kind of sit on, because you're kind of like, you're heavy, it's hot, you're tired, it's been a long night, you know what I mean? And you can take off your Kevlar. And I remember seeing, I think it was Onspock, took off his Kevlar helmet. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to take mine off. You know, I want to, it hurts, it's hot. I want to take a minute. I remember telling him like, hey man, you can't think about it right now. We got to focus on what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I remember saying it to him. Another guy, Crespo, another buddy, was like peeing in like this like raised shower area in the room. The rooms were very small. And then another guy, Caster's like around like this partial wall looking out the window. And so we're sitting down on that little ledge of the wall that faces the alleyway. It's on the corner of the alleyway and the graveyard road, right? And the room next to us that faces out to the graveyard, somebody shoots out of it. And I think, frick, now they know where we're at. You know what I mean? Because we're supposed to operate out of this like secretly, right? And I'm like, dude, he just gave away our position. And then there's guys in different rooms doing different things, right? And like, because I'm not at 0311, I don't have like a specific job I have to do in this moment. The other guys are taking like watch and positions. And I have like, I guess I kind of had the privilege of I get to like just chill for a minute, because I don't have like a job I have to accomplish right now, because I'm like kind of a support piece in this. And as we're sitting on that wall, all of a sudden, boom, boom, it gets blown up right where we're resting against. Like me and Onspock and Crespo are sitting on this little crack, and Caster's on the other side of the wall, this little like partial wall, can't see him. And boom, we get blown up, and then it gets lit up with machine gun fire, right? And I remember thinking, right, now this is where my memory gets really like, it doesn't make sense to order I remember things. Because I remember seeing tracers fly through the wall, right? Tracers are like these little, like, I don't know exactly what they are, but they're like fire on the back of bullets, so you can see them visually as they fly, right? So like looks like a little red zips across this. And in our ammo, they're every fifth round, right? So every fifth round has got a tracer on it, and you can see it flying through. So I remember thinking, the whole room filled with dust instantly. Like you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And I remember thinking, wow, that's good tactics to blow us up first and finish this off with a machine gun. Because my experience with all the Iraqis so far is they don't have tactics for crap. You know what I mean? They're terrible. Everything about them is like trash, right? Like this is not a comparable fighting force. But this moment I thought, wow, that was freaking good tactics. That was the thought I had for whatever reason. But what doesn't make sense is if the explosions happened first, then the machine gun fire. But I remember seeing the tracers, but I was blown on the ground face first. And so I remember being blown on the ground, and my brain, before I could get up, told me, you're about like 5 steps away from the door. You came in this room. You're the one who kicked open the door, right? So the door is going to open by pulling, not by pushing. It was a door knob, not a door latch. But the pressure of the explosion is going to shut the door by this point, and you're going to have to feel for the door frame to find the door handle is the fastest way. And my brain told me all that before I got up. And so I got up, and my thought was, I got to get out of this room or I will die. That was my dominant thought, man. I was like in for reals flight. It was not fight, it was flight. And I ran, I did that 5 steps, found the door frame with my hand, went straight down it, found the doorknob, turned, pulled instead of pushed, because I remember it was going to be shut because of the pressure of the explosion, ran catty corner into the other room. And there's 2 Marines in there, and they have a sledgehammer pickaxe, and they're pickaxing a hole through the wall to make like a sniping hole for sniping and spotting. And I'm like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking any moment this room's going to get lit the frick up, right? And I'm like, you got to stop making noise right now, you know? And it's at that moment that I'm still like in like panic mode, you know what I mean? That I hear Onspock say, somebody help. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm the only one who left that room. And so I turn around, and by the time I turn around, I come out of that room, there's this different corpsman, not the same one as before, coming up the staircase, and we go into that room. And first guy I see right next to the door laying down the ground is Onspock. And he's like, I'm like, dude, get up. We have got to get out of here. You know what I mean? And he's like, I can't move my legs. I'm like, oh, you know, because I was like, it's funny as you realize, like, duh, he probably would have left. I was just thinking, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, but he was like, I can't use my legs. I was like, man, I should have a little more compassion, you know? But whatever, he gets up, and I remember seeing Crespo laying on the ground. Crespo's like in classic dead guy pose on the ground. And I'm like, he's looking dead. He was a Catholic guy, and so me and him would connect about God and stuff. And he said like the weirdest thing to me. I can't remember exactly, but something like, I think Jesus is smiling on me or something like that. And I was like, okay, dude, like, let's get you out of here. And what happened to him is he has been sitting on the wall with his arm, I guess, in a position like this. And a bullet went through the back of his arm, through his arm, and through his hand. Went like, from what I remember. And so he was hurt pretty bad. I remember seeing him later. He got fixed up and his fingers like permanently kind of like bent a little bit. Maybe it's better now. I don't know. All those guys actually lived, including Watson. Watson had a ton of plastic surgery. I didn't follow up with him years later, so I don't really know where he's at today. But yeah, so that was a crazy experience. I mean, we had more stuff happen that trip. Most of the crazy stories are there, but that was my near encounter, the closest I came to dying on that little trip. But turned out in that building across from us that we had to run across the alleyway from, there was like an ammo stash or something there because bad guys kept coming back to it. And so we kept killing bad guys like the next 3 days in that building because they kept coming back to it. And so guys would be lobbing grenades in there, shooting machine guns into all the people that came in that room. But yeah, so yeah, Allensbach and all those guys got evac'd at that moment. And so I was on my own without my rocket launcher. So I just kind of like took over guys' shifts to give them a break to sleep. And I didn't realize this, but like a day or two later, like the time, all the day run in together on that mission, we got fresh apples and I didn't eat it up to that point. You know, you're not hungry. You don't even think about it. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, sweet apple, you know, and it was like the best apple I've ever ate in my life. You know what I mean? Like, where did they get these wonderful apples from? But eating the apple, my hand felt sticky. And I was like, why is my hand sticky? You know, the apple, was it had juice on or something? So I look at my hand, but I had shooting gloves on. I'm like, how could my hand, because my thought was like, maybe I put my hand like in something sticky on the ground or something. And I looked at my glove and I took my glove off because I was like, well, how can my hand be sticking with a glove on? And my hand is caked with blood. I didn't realize it, but I had taken like shrapnel in that room in the back of my arm. It was all in my backside and it soaked the backside of my arm in blood. And I didn't realize it because it was the backside of my arm, right? And I couldn't see it until I looked at that moment, you know, because you're like kind of dirty and sweaty anyway. So you're like, you're not like paying attention to these little details. But when we finally came back to base, there are people on like the bases who never leave the base, right? And so like if you're somebody who does leave, they're like, look, you're like, whoa. And I remember we felt pretty cool coming back all like bloodied and like war torn, like, yeah, we're hard, you know, you guys are weak sauce, you know. So we felt pretty cool in that moment coming back. But that was a intense little trip. I mean, there's more stories than that in it. And like we have other sniping stories where we were having little sniper battles with this one snipe. I remember the SEAL Team 2 guys were with us on a spot for this guy. And I was thinking of, you remember the movie Enemy in the Gate? The guy gets shot.
That's one of my favorites.
Right?
Yeah.
He gets shot. And I remember thinking, because I was spotting for the SEAL Team 2 guy he had a 50 cal. And I was like, if I get shot through the friggin' eye right now, that was my thought. Like, I don't like this, you know? But I didn't get shot through the eye. But literally, I was standing watching because the walls have been blown out in this building. We're like, I don't know how many stories up we are, but I'm like watching this mosque in the distance. The sun is coming up. I'm like, hey, bro, it's your turn to stand shifts and watch. And second I went down, he stood up, snap, a bullet shot the wall right where I had been standing all night. I was like, dude, I could have got killed. I was just there. So that was another crazy moment. And there's lots of little moments like that, but that's probably the biggest. That mission was the biggest scary one where I ended up getting a Purple Heart because of it. And guys that I knew got hurt the worst. A couple guys got killed on that. But yeah, I won't tell their stories this time. But yeah, pretty crazy. And then I got out of the Marine Corps and I went to Bethel. And I said, I got some money. I'm not going to work. I guess I'll just do the School of Ministry. So I did the School of Ministry at Bethel the first year. And then I got married. I met my wife, got married, had 5 kids now. And during that time, I started working at Bethel in 2007 till present, even though right now I'm a 0-hour employee. But I did like security there. I did custodial for a really long time. And then I helped with events also. And then I also ended up teaching Bible classes at BSSM in the second year. And I got my, I started working on my bachelor's in like 2008. And I got my bachelor's of Bible and theology from Simpson. Then years later, I went back to school and I got my master's of arts in biblical languages and linguistics from Liberty University. And I chose
Where did you meet Nick? I assume it was after you got out of Marines, but yeah.
Yeah, at Bethel. So he probably because he became a custodian. I don't really remember.
Yeah, okay.
But he became my right-hand guy as we were working custodian at Bethel. So that's where I met Nick, and you got a lot of time to talk and chat, and that's where I guess he listened to everything Jordan Peterson's ever said from his own lips.
Yeah, so that was around 2017, something like that.
I don't know. This is all
Yeah.
blurry time frame for me. Years go by too quick there. So yeah, but that's where I met Nick. So I mean, that I guess I kind of summarized that last part up to present pretty fast. But yeah, that's kind of brought me to where I am today.
Cool.
And yeah.
No, some awesome stories. And to be honest, I cannot recall any other wartime. We definitely have military veterans in the corner.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I cannot recall any sort of storytelling in the corner, to that extent of service. So it's pretty awesome, pretty rad. My best friend when I was younger, he loves collecting firearms, and
nice.
he bought I think it's called a Barrett M7. It's a 50 cal. Yeah,
Man.
and I only I think I did take one shot of that thing, and I said no. Like I don't want to be around this thing. It's not, it's just an unpleasant.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's on a different level.
Cool, but it's not fun. Like yeah, like when I was spotting for that SEAL guy in that room, we were in a small bedroom size room, like small bedroom. And it's enclosed, right? And that thing, it's got a 50 cal bullet, right? So it's like a small explosion in that room, and it made the room feel like poof, like that. And it was like giving me a freaking headache. You know what I mean? Like it was like, this isn't fun to be next to him when he shoots this, right? And so I remember like tapping out, like, hey, can somebody else spot now? Like, who wants to do it? Like, I'm done. So yeah, it's not a fun experience. And well, the rockets we fire are even worse. They're it's like a slap on your whole body, right? But
yeah,
so it is.
You seem remarkably unfazed by going through that,
Yeah, it's I would attribute that to my faith. Obviously, it's interesting because you see how other guys handled it. Like that sergeant who was over the Marines that did the machine gunning. He's the one who had to tell who to go up there. He struggled hard afterwards. Like he was a lifer, right? He was into his life, but he was talking about getting out because he was like, I don't know when push comes to shove if I can really handle being the one who tells who's going to get up there and live and die. And he was struggling hard with that question. And but it was easier for me to process because I'm like, one, God is just, you know what I mean? So like I have that underlying framework, whether I understand it or not, I believe it's true, right? And we've all been given a fair shot, right? Like so I don't think God is like, well, it's not fair for that guy to die and not for you to die. I'm like, I don't know how all the math works out, but I know he's just. And so if I die or if that guy's died, like it's fair from whatever perspective. And so I think that underlying framework and my belief in eternity and stuff allows me to process that different than guys who don't have a faith. And a lot of guys, like, it was a hard thing for them to process. I remember this other guy kind of went, this is a different story, but another Marine shot this other Marine in the head. He shot him in the Kevlar, and we have these like metal plates on our Kevlar helmets to mount your NVGs to. So the bullet went through that metal plate, went through the Kevlar, and it hit his skull and bounced off. So he lived, but he got like a massive concussion. But he hated that other Marine. That other Marine, though, kind of did his due diligence. He said, hey, are there any Marines out there? And so he called and they said, there's no Marines out. You can like basically take the shot, right? But at the same time, like I can tell the difference in a silhouette of a Marine moving in the dark than I can tell an Iraqi person. Like I can just tell by the way you move. That's not an Iraqi person. That's a Marine, So I'm kind of like 50-50 on whether that guy was a boot at the time. So he's like a new guy, but whatever. He almost killed another Marine, friendly fire. That wouldn't be the first case. Oh yeah, I forgot to say this. The guys who shot us, it was friendly fire. There was a gunnery sergeant in the tracked vehicle that saw one of the guys stick the guns out the window. And he thought it was bad guys because he didn't know we were in that building, and he lit it up. I never met him in person, but somebody told me they did. And like, I guess he felt terrible, which I guess you should feel terrible.
In some ways, I can imagine that's even worse than, knowing that you're responsible for something terrible.
Yeah,
is
totally.
Almost worse than being the one to experience it.
Yeah. And another
imagine.
Guy shot off another guy's foot on another mission. And that guy almost killed himself when he went to Berkeley with a shotgun one day. I've heard his story a little bit, but the guy who went crazy in that other scenario was the one who got shot. He hated that other dude. I don't know how the other dude turned out. I never heard his story, but the other guy, people just said he went weird. I don't know if he was a little weird to start off with, but he went weird. And then another one of my buddies was telling me he was calling him up because he was strung out on drugs and all this stuff. So it didn't go well for him afterwards. And I don't know what you attribute that to. Maybe it's PTSD, maybe it's that, maybe it's just his whole life and bringing up. But I would definitely say having a real faith in God is definitely noticeable in how you process that stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
At least for me.
I only got, unfortunately, another 5 minutes or so, but because I would like to talk more at some point about things like how you're thinking about parenting in today's day and age. I think that's a huge conversation. But
do you have kids?
Yeah, I just have one daughter. But
nice. How old?
Yeah, 10 years old.
So, okay, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But is there anything that you've got that you'd like to talk about? In the last few minutes?
Not particularly. No, I mean, that's it.
Well, it's really cool getting your story. I think I suspect other people might, especially those with military experience, might be interested in speaking with you more. But yeah, at some point, I think, and I've had this conversation with Nick just over Signal and other mediums of just thinking through navigating. We have this dichotomy of agent and arena, like God as agent and God as arena. So God is, say, the mover and the shaker and the Holy Spirit moving throughout the world, but then God also as the creator of the situation of where we find ourselves in. And you can also think about this in what you were describing about your confidence being shaken in the individual, but not in God himself.
Yeah.
And striking that balance with children to give them the right structure, give them the right arena, give them the right way to navigate the world or as best we can. But then knowing that ultimately they have to be the discerner. They have to get to the point of discerning, oh, that person that I thought was a really good influence. There's some things that I need to pull back from. And I think that point of discernment is becoming more and more critical today. It's very difficult. So yeah, maybe something to think about, topic for the future, but that navigating that with children. Because I think generally speaking, this space or not space that we were inhabiting, we're really focused on that question. Like, what is it? There's a term, universal basic institutions. Like, what are the foundational institutions that help people navigate and continue? And having a strong church, but what does it mean to have a strong church? And then what does it mean when that church gets undermined? And and questions like that, where there's no necessarily easy answers, but really good questions. So
yeah. I mean, you're begging me to jump in, but you said we have 5 minutes. So I'm resisting the temptation.
No, I'm sort of putting out the line there for a future conversation. So
dangling the carrot.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, it is a pleasure meeting you, Will.
Well, yeah,
thanks for sharing your story. And
it's good.
I hope you continue to participate in this space. But I'll stop the recording, but hang out for a second.
Okay.